Hey guys, welcome back to the Giovanni Show. Today we have on somebody that I'm lucky enough to call my friend Chris Long. Chris, it's always an honor to have you on, man.
Gio, it's great to see you. And like I was saying offline, like every time I talk to you, your voice is just getting deeper and deeper. And pretty soon you're gonna have a job and be a grown up, man. It's crazy to see you. Well, you already have a job and it's going very well, but it's crazy to see you kind of growing up, man, before my eyes, man. I'm super happy for you as always. So it's good to see you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you. So, first thing we got to talk about is Jason Kelce retires. How did you feel about that? And do you have any funny Jason Kelce stories?
Listen, I knew he was probably gonna retire. But my advice, if he gleaned anything from it, I think he was going to make a decision how he was going to make it. And who knows if Schefter didn't leak that, how he was going to retire. But I always think, Jeff Fisher told me something where he said, you don't want to retire during a J month, January, June, July, because if you retire in January, it's too fresh. It's walking off the field after Tampa. I know people saw him talking to Stout, and I never asked him about the contents of that conversation, but um, it's too fresh. Even if you're sure you're going to retire, wait a little bit. And so I understood him waiting and like making sure he felt the way he probably knew he did. And then you never want to retire in the summer because you're probably just afraid of training camp. And so like I think it's an emotional decision. I've been there. There are going to be days he regrets retiring. That's just the way it is, especially when you play at a high level your last year. I mean, like I can relate to playing well my last year. I can't relate to playing like him. I mean, he looked terrific out there. He didn't look like he had lost a step, anything. But at some point, you have to leave the game, or the game's going to leave you. And you don't want that because I think that there's a couple ways guys can end their careers, and I think the way you feel about your career is going to be predicated on how that ends. And for Jason, there's so much to be proud of, incredible career, but to end on his terms and end playing at a high level and to do it in phase where he has all these opportunities lined up for him. It's just a testament to how smart, how hardworking, and how great he was as a player. And he's going to be great as a retired player too.
Yeah, 100%. I know he's going to be in the room and in the locker room and on the field soon. Hopefully he comes on at least as a consultant. We
Yeah,
need
that'd be
him.
cool.
Yeah, we need him back. I was thinking yesterday he probably did start regretting it a little bit after Saquon Barkley. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
man, just seeing how he go to work yesterday was awesome.
Well, listen, Saquon, I fully believe this. He's one of the most special talents in the NFL. And I believe that as soon as I played him, I think it was rookie year, maybe in 18. And we went up to New York, and I'll never forget having a front row seat watching him juke probably 7 to 8 of my teammates on the way to like a long run after a screen. I'm running as hard as I can. I can't figure out what the angle is. He's ducking and diving and dodging. And I felt like I was in an EA Sports commercial, and I was the cameraman. It was crazy. I remember saying to myself, this guy's got a chance to be one of the best ever. Now, injuries are one thing, but also the context of kind of like the situation in New York. That is a bad situation that he's been in. And I think he's going to be in such a better situation in Philly that hopefully we get to fully realize, not only on a winning team, but the way he plays, like his greatness. And so I totally understand him wanting to stick it to the Giants. I don't think Tiki's comments make much sense. But for Philly fans who are attacking Tiki, I would ask you to look in the mirror a little bit, because when Jason Peters went to the Cowboys, everybody was like, he's dead to me. Now,
Right.
I know it's maybe a little bit of a different situation, but I also say Deshaun Jackson, like he got a very warm retirement kind of, I don't know if you call it a reception from Eagles fans. Now, he went and played for the then Redskins. I mean, like it couldn't be more of a division rival. So listen, it's a business. Players change teams, get your money or get your opportunities however you deem the right way. And I think Saquon's going to have more space to work with this year, but I also think it might signal a little bit of an acknowledgement that our O line might be more of a work in progress than usual. Like with Jason leaving, and you want to see Jurgens develop, and who knows how it shakes out in our injuries. Like having a dynamic back this year for Howie might be more of a necessity, where in years past, you haven't really invested in that position because your offensive line's like the Monstars, dude. So I think this year it's going to be really interesting to see not only the way the offensive line shakes out, but also how Saquon's opportunities change, because I think they're going to be better, and I'm really excited for him. And the Huff signing to me kind of snuck under the radar. It's a lot of money for a guy that probably only played the run 28% of his snaps last year, because like what we're talking about is more of a specialist, a la like me. I wish they'd have given me 20, but I'm not hating on the guy. He's one of my favorite players in the league. Like when I watched the Jets, I mean, he was tremendous. And we talked about him on the show, if you listen to our show, all the time. So it was kind of like I was flying home from Austin. We did South by Southwest over the weekend. It was great. But I land in DC and I get two notifications. The first one's Saquon, the second one's Huff. And I'm like, am I dreaming? This is awesome. So hopefully it works out really well.
Yeah, this morning I emailed Howie Roseman and I said, Howie, thank you.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, no, he's gonna work, dude. That's what he does. So um, I'm excited to see, especially on the D line, how that shakes out, because I think they're gonna be better behind the D line next year. And I thought last year there was a lot put on those guys.
Yeah. So obviously your friend Fletcher Cox retires, and I went on Twitter and I saw the video. I think it was Dave Spadero was asking you guys some questions, and Fletcher says long Cox, and that's just that's really how your guys' friendship was and how it looked like. So what did you think of his retirement? I know that one probably hit home.
It did hit home. They all hit home, Gio, because it's a reminder not only that it's temporary for everybody, which I already knew as a player, being out of it for 5-6 years, but it's just been a long time, man, since 17. And it's surreal when you go. We went to the Expo Center to do an autograph signing this weekend, and Doug Peterson's there, Donnell Ellerby, Najee Good, Bo Allen, BG rolls up. So you still get some active players. I'm signing autographs. I feel somebody put me in a headlock behind me. I looked up, it's Nick Foles, and I didn't even know he was going to be there. And it was just so cool to feel like, I mean, it was sobering to think, man, it's been a long time and we're kind of old now. And that thing, as fresh as it feels, is in the rear view, but also how great it feels to run into those guys from that team and to watch the last members of that team retire. It is kind of surreal. And I know it's even more surreal for Philly fans who watch Fletch and, BG doing one more year or whatever he wants to do, and Jason retiring. I mean, it's the twilight, man. And it comes for everybody. But Fletcher, I'll say this, there are some guys you play with that you feel a real brotherhood kind of bond with. And like, I would go to the wall for that guy. Like, there was nothing I had more fun than doing. We used to huddle up in the locker room and listen to a Chris Stapleton song called Death Row right before we went out on the field. And sometimes I'll send him that like on game day, but just little things like that, man. Like, he was just that kind of guy he would ride with you, man. He was a guy that would not be selfish on the field. Like, and I think that was one of the best qualities of Fletch. He was like a real throwback, and he was great in the run game. He was great in the pass game. And playing around him made you better. He made everybody better. Hey, say you take 15 truly blue chip elite players in the NFL. Not every one of them makes the people around them better. Fletch will allow other people to have opportunities, knowing that he's going to do the dirty work and he's the best player on the defense on that team. And so I just can't say enough about his unselfishness, the brotherhood we all had, but the friendship that he allowed me to have, where I was a vet. And at one point in my career, I was one of the dudes. Like, I was one of the best dudes on my team at one point. I was never Fletcher, but to join that team, walk into a locker room and be a vet trying to find your way, and the best player on the defense is an easy dude to hang out with, to rush next to go to dinner with, to sit in meetings with, to sit on the plane with, man. I love the person, man. And I just can't say enough about him. To me, Hall of Famer, somebody who encapsulates what it is to be a Philly player. I mean, he was a blue collar guy with great talent. And reminiscent of some of those guys from the 90s, man. You know, like after we won the Super Bowl, I had a whole bag full of jerseys from Mitchell and Ness that I wanted to give guys for the parade. And so they were like, "See Long, what you got in here?" I got my fur coat. Jason walks, it was mummer thing, but we got these jerseys of old players, whether it's Carmichael or whoever. There's one Reggie White jersey, and I pulled that off and took it to the side because there's only one guy wearing that Reggie White jersey, and that's Fletcher Cox. And you know, I think he was that kind of guy that Philly fans who lived through both kind of eras could say, hey, that guy would fit in on that D line with Jerome Brown and Golick and Reggie White and all, and Clyde Simmons. Like he was that kind of guy, old school. Love Fletch.
Yeah. I always saw this story. So back in 2016, 2017, the season that you guys won the Super Bowl, I went to my first Eagles game on New Year's Eve when you guys lost 6-0 to the Cowboys.
Oh,
And I got to go on the sideline before the game, thanks to Coach DeFilippo, at the time quarterback coach, just a great guy. And
well, yeah.
you know, one of the first people that walks up to me is Fletcher Cox, and he just took the time to talk to me and my dad, and just like a genuine good guy, like you said, you know, just like he's so humble, and I love that about him, and we're gonna miss him.
He will be missed, and I know he was in a good mood that day because he didn't have to play at all because they were resting the starters. Now the guys who were proper second stringers on base downs had to play like 55 plays. It was 0 degrees out that day. You remember how cold it was?
It was
Oh,
awful. It was
oh,
awful.
but he was just awesome, man, and that whole group, man, like just so unselfish. And I tweeted this: he made everybody around him better, and that's the best compliment I can give somebody.
Yeah. So, you know, if you're Howie Roseman, obviously losing two great players on each line, how are you planning to make this team not crumble?
Well, see, I think the things that they have to focus on is not only obviously replacing these guys, and in some situations, like bringing guys along and saying, hey, like Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, it's your time now. Like y'all are the guys. So it's time to start acting like the guys. You know, like that means on the practice field, in meetings, in the building. I've heard nothing but good things about these guys, but you got to take it to another level now because, you know, Fletcher's gone. There are going to be leaders that are going to leave in the next year or two. You know, I don't know how much longer BG wants to play. I think it's like 1 year or something. But the bottom line is, you know, as you watch this kind of Mount Rushmore of Philly athletes from this era in football leave or retire, that sort of thing, like somebody's got to step up and take their place. And so I think sometimes it's adding players, but sometimes it's the players that are there taking that jump and saying, okay, now it's time for me to assume more responsibility, to think more highly of my ceiling and to expect more of myself and to set the tone. So those guys have to set the tone. You know, a guy like Josh Sweat now, he's getting to be a vet. If he's back, like I don't know what they're gonna do at edge, but like he should be a leader. You know, like BG is obviously a leader. I think what they have to do to keep the team from crumbling is invest in the positions that hurt them last year. They have to nail whatever they do in the back end. They have to nail if they're going to invest in a linebacker or, you know, draft a backer or pay a backer. And I'm talking about paying somebody, not just like a guy that we're like, oh, who's that?
Yeah.
Um, you know, the back end of that defense last year was abhorrent, you know, and so they have to fix that, whether it's Bradbury moving on, whether it's getting, you know, Slay healthy and him playing well this year, whether it's making decisions on certain guys. Like, and I think offensively, the Saquon move does signal something to me. That's not status quo for Howie. You know, he's getting paid, I think, fourth in the league as a running back per year. Like that's not what he has done in the past. So I think it tells you something. And that's Howie being creative and saying, you know, we got to do something different. And I hope maybe he does it at backer. I hope he does that in the back end through the draft or however he wants to address it. But I think you've got a lot of good pieces. If Jalen can get back to being Jalen, right? Who we don't need him to be Patrick Mahomes. We know that. We need him to beat Patrick Mahomes, and he almost did that. You know, so he's plenty good when he's good. You just got to bring that out in him, and I think a lot of that was the scheme. A lot of that is the scheme, and a lot of that defensively is going to be personnel and scheme. So you're replacing two guys that didn't work out as coordinators. If they're good, I think this team's going to be competitive again. But you have to fill in the holes too.
100%. And, one of the biggest holes throughout the past few years has been at the linebacker position. And I'm just praying to God that Howie Roseman uses this draft to beef up the linebacker room.
I hope so too. And one thing I'll just say that if you watch football, you notice this. When some of the best offenses in football play now, and there are a lot of like West Coast derivative offenses, like these beefed up, super fast Miami or San Francisco, or like real challenging offenses schematically, people attack the middle of the field, people attack people's eyes. The second level of your defense, the backers are really key. When Buffalo's defense made it hell for Miami. Now they did that anyways because they got corners that can play the flat and they're willing to play aggressively and that sort of thing. Matt Milano is a big part of that, like when he was healthy early in the year, when they just absolutely stomped them in Buffalo, or the linebackers in San Francisco. If Greenlaw stays healthy in that game, I don't know. Like, backer is a very valuable position when you're playing the best teams in the league. And, teams that don't put an emphasis on those linebackers, San Francisco, we can't beat San Francisco if we don't have good linebackers. A year ago you had White and a couple of guys, and I think the linebacker core took a step back, right? You had the guy who went to Chicago who played real well there. This year they just didn't have a chance, in my opinion. Like when you get ready for that game and I was breaking it down, I was worried about that second level and the run game and everything that comes off it with play action and the matchups with the tight ends and Debo. So they have to have, I think we have done a bad job as football fans of de-emphasizing, devaluing that position. We talk running backs a shiny object. It was like, we don't value running backs. I don't think, not necessarily contractually, but just the way you think about building a team, people think enough about that position. It's still a very important position.
Yeah. So if you're Howie Roseman, what are you making a move on? Who are you making a move on in the offseason?
Man, that's a good one. I mean, I'm a huge L'Jarius Sneed fan. I'm just saying that in a vacuum. Like, I don't know what's going on there. I've been on vacation for a couple days. I haven't been keeping up with the chiefswire.com or anything. But like when Sneed, we were talking about trades for L'Jarius Sneed, I know McKinney was probably a target, but he just signed somewhere else. Like, I just want one guy in that secondary that's just a dog. And that's why I think L'Jarius Sneed, to me, I don't even know if he's available because they tagged him, and I don't know the nature of that tag or what they're talking about or what the haul would have to look like. But what I'd like to see is somebody in that secondary who's a tone setting dog. We had that in our Super Bowl year, and that was Malcolm Jenkins, right? And he was a great leader. And I think we need that kind of thing on the back end. So somebody like Sneed, somebody who can lock down a receiver, take half the field away. We've seen so many really good corners come out of the draft in the past couple of years. That seems to be a position that's a little bit easier to figure out, like in the draft. Like if a guy's supposed to be good, I think he's probably pretty good. So I would look hard at trying to grab somebody who's not only got coverage skills, but can bring some leadership or toughness into that group. I'm not saying they're not tough, but a lot of that run fit stuff that showed up in that Cardinals game, for instance, like that's just bullshit. Like you need some guys that'll stick their face in the fan and also know how to do it. And I really would attack the secondary. I really would.
Yeah, you bring up Malcolm, and that's such a great point. We haven't seen a guy like Malcolm. I mean, truly, I don't think that any guy can be exactly like Malcolm. He was just a genius. But we need somebody to be as loud as him and be as vocal as him for sure.
Yeah. And to set a standard and be hard on guys.
Yeah, accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So who are you hoping that the Eagles draft?
Man, dude, you know what? I'm not the best draft guy because I take it one position at a time. Like so far, I've done D tackles and defensive line, or defensive end. Me and Bo have been breaking down those groups. But I would say, like, I'm like you. Like, I'd love to see them go get somebody in the back seven. Whoever that stud backer is, like, throw the rules out the window. Whoever that stud lockdown corner is, like, I would take a look there. Like, I just I'm a sucker for supporting that group up front, because you do have some guys up there who can make plays. If you're looking at a defensive end class, not that I'm saying the Eagles should look at any of these guys necessarily unless they fall, and we'll see how the edge stuff shakes out. But I love the kid from UCLA. I know he's got some medical issues. He's a stud. I think the kid at Florida State, Jared Verse, is a stud. I like Chop Robinson a lot. I get some questions about maybe his play strength or size, but he is a football player. I like all the ends, and I love the Texas tackle Murphy. I just think he's head and shoulders above the rest of that class, and so that's what I've seen so far. But positionally for the Eagles, I'm a sucker for going after guys that make my life easier up front, because I think that's where it starts. If somebody asked me if you had a chance at Myles Garrett, well, maybe a bad example, but like a blue chip edge rusher and a blue chip lockdown corner, I might take the blue chip lockdown corner because you can manufacture pressure. Vic Fangio can manufacture pressure, but you need the guys outside that can play.
Can't agree with you more. I mean, everybody's been asking me, Gio, who do you want in the first round? But I got my eyes locked on the second round. We need to get Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I mean, it's just we need Jeremiah Trotter Jr. To be a Philadelphia Eagle.
Axeman Jr.
Man, that would be electric.
Yeah,
that would be.
I haven't watched him. I haven't watched him play a lot. There's a couple second generation guys who are kind of coming up in the ranks with Frank Gore Jr. and so it's kind of makes me feel old to see, guys, kids now playing in the league.
Yeah. I was at the combine this year, and just the entire draft class this year, I feel like they're all not only so humble, but they're just big guys. Like they're demons. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see this draft.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I mean, just with the quarterbacks coming off the board early, there's always drama. And, I think Kirk signing in Atlanta tells me that those three teams up front are probably going to stay where they are.
Yeah. So last question for you. I have a little bit of a game for us to play. So if the Eagles were having a movie made about them right now, who do you think would play Nick Sirianni?
Oh, geez. How do you say his name? Shia LaBeouf?
Yeah, I think that's how you say it. Yeah.
I
had mine as Adam Sandler. I think Adam Sandler could be a good one.
But I think Shia LaBeouf.
Who do you got for Howie Roseman?
Ooh. Howie Roseman. Let's see. See, I'm not as good because I always have to Google the names of the guys. Who do you have as Howie Roseman?
Jason Sudeikis.
Jason
Ted Lasso.
Sudeikis. Yeah, the Ted Lasso guy. It's got to be somebody who can do the glad hand thing, where it's like he's very social, he's charming, he's affable, but then he's got to be able to turn into a monster.
Yeah.
When it's not cutting time, like, so maybe somebody like that who's played a role like that.
Yeah. Who do you have as Jalen Hurts?
Ooh, Jalen Hurts. Without the goatee, Jalen Hurts?
I mean, whichever one. I mean,
how do we feel about no goatee Jalen Hurts?
I thought it was photoshopped. I was not convinced that was a real picture.
That was crazy, dude. It's like when you shave your beard, it's just it's a tough one. Okay, let's see. Man. I like the guy for Jalen Hurts. Who do you have? I
have him as himself. I feel like he's just built his brand so much more than football.
Why not Michael B. Jordan?
That could work too. Or like Will Smith, or
because everybody thinks Michael B. Jordan's so damn good looking. Everybody thinks Jalen Hurts is good looking, like, and he's athletic. Michael B. Jordan, he's done the Creed stuff, and I think that'd be a good one.
Yeah, that definitely could work. What about Lane Johnson?
Oh, Kyle Long. uh no, Lane would be a tough one because you almost have to go into the Game of Thrones kind of actors, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna find an extra in Game of Thrones who can really also act because there's no actors that can play Lane unless you had somebody in mind.
I had Stone Cold
Stone
Steve
Cold.
Austin. Yeah,
Stone Cold. That's it.
that's it.
Stone
That
Cold.
is it. What about Reed Blankenship?
Ooh, Reed Blankenship.
I feel like Ryan Gosling could do it good.
But my problem with Ryan Gosling is like in the football movie, and Remember the Titans, I wasn't as impressed. Like there was a
Yeah,
reason he wasn't on the field, and Reed
yeah.
had such a good year. Like I don't know if to act like a white safety, it's a real challenge. It's hard enough to
It's
be a
hard.
white safety. Okay,
Maybe he'd play himself. I mean,
Mahershala Ali.
okay.
Yeah,
All right, I like
for
that.
Reed Blankenship.
What about Brandon Graham?
BG. Oh man. Who could play BG, dude? All right, let me see.
Mine
Hmm.
was Martin Lawrence.
Oh, that's pretty good. I mean, he's funny enough to be BG. Let's see. I'm looking at the Oscars list because oh, you know who might be a really good BG?
Who?
The guy from Westworld. Beef him up. He's a little bit older. I'm trying to think of the guy from Westworld. Westworld cast. Jeffrey Wright.
I could see it.
Yeah, Jeffrey Wright's a little bit older, but I think he might be able to pull off BG. But you got to get Jeffrey Wright on like some juice because he's
Yeah.
not a big guy.
Right. Well, Chris, thank you so much for sparing some time today. I had so much fun, as always. And man, it's just crazy to think it's almost been 4 years since we met each other. So
That's
it's
crazy. No, man, I'm super psyched to see your journey, dude, because you're really good at this, man. And just like going through it myself, like every time I talk to you, I can tell. It's not like when I talk to you, I'm like, oh, he could be better at this. But every time I talk to you, I'm like, he got better. Like, so keep it up, man. Like you're crushing it. You're absolutely crushing it, bro.
I appreciate you, man. I was just telling my mom, I was like, I'm going off to college soon. With me graduating next year, I might take one of the summers and move out to Virginia and come intern with you.
Come check us
Learn.
out, bro. Come check us out. You can visit anytime, bro. Our doors always open to you, man. If you ever want to take a road trip, come holler.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That sounds so fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on today.
It's great to see you, man.